there's something happening in South Africa, but it's not around the AFCON. It's around the South African Football Association house. South African Football Association President Danny Jordaan, alongside his co-accused, they can heave a sigh of relief right now as the SAFA Chief Financial Officer, Gronie Hluyo, and also businessman Trevor Neethling, they have been granted bail of 20,000 rand by the Palmbridge Magistrate Court in South Africa, with their next court appearance scheduled for December 5. Yes, you can see the way Danny Jordaan is posed in that picture there. There is a cause for worry. The charges on the SAFA trio stem from an intensive investigation by the Hawks into an alleged 1.3 million rands fraud and theft. Magistrate Phillip Venter, he allowed Jordaan to retain his passport, noting that it might be necessary for him to perform his duties as the South African Football Association president. Jordaan was also ordered to provide an investigating officer with a written itinerary at least 72 hours before departing the country, and any travel must be limited to an official SAFA duties. So at this time, he has met his bail obligation and has been released from the South African police custody. So we'll keep following this situation. Remember, there is a lot to unpack here. We'll wait to get more light, but just keep a tab with them, News Central in the game and Game On, to get to be abreast with the developments from this situation. So it's happening there in South Africa. We do not know the implications of all this. Remembering that South Africa have their bid to host a World Cup anytime soon. They're even talking about hosting the Women's World Cup anytime soon. I'm hoping that this does not dent that intention of hosting a competition so big like a World Cup. We'll keep a tab on it, as I did promise you, but let's move away from all that situation and talk women's football right now. The CAF Women's Champions League sees Edo Queens on Wednesday. They battled FC Mansa of Egypt to a goalless draw. It was a bit surprising. This is the second Group B match of the 2025 CAF Women's Champions League in Morocco. This left their chances of progressing to the semi-final, of course, on a thin line. The Nigerian and West African champions still maintain their pole position on the log with 4 points, same as their Egyptian opponents, while Mamelodi Sundown ladies are third with 3 points following their 4-0 demolition of Central Bank of Ethiopia in the group first match on Wednesday. So it means that Moses Aduku's team, they must now secure at least a draw in their last group game against Mamelodi Sundown ladies, and that's might be a tough ask. But let's listen to the coach, Moses Aduku, and what he had to say after that encounter against Marsa.
Everybody, the two teams played, and it was scoreless. It was the result we wanted. We wanted to win, but you know, sometimes you win some, and sometimes you lose, and we did not lose. We played a draw. So therefore, we wait and go for the next game. Actually, we believe winning this game will take us straight to the semi-final, you know, before playing the last game. But sometimes it's not easy. So what do? We prepare for the next game, but I think we'll come back strong. I think we need to find our scoring boots. You know, like today we had some scoring chances, but we could not take them. Sometimes football is like that. So we'll get our scoring boots and we'll do justice to the next game.
I'm wondering where that scoring boots did go. After their first game, they scored 3. I was looking at them scoring more against Marsa. Remember that Marsa began their own campaign against Mamelodi Sundown ladies with just 1 goal through a penalty kick. And I was expecting more from Edo Queens in that encounter, but goalless or goalless? I think Marsa is a team that we should watch out for. They've got a great defensive side. Now, Group B here, where Edo Queens lie, they are leading the Group B with 4 points, having played 2 games, 1-1, drawn 1, no loss yet recorded by Edo Queens. FC Mansa has played 2, drawn 1, and 1-1 without any loss, and still sit with 4 points, sharing same point with Edo Queens. Mamelodi Sundown ladies picked up their first point yesterday after they defeated Central Bank of Ethiopia Now, Central Bank had no point after suffering 2 losses in this group. So it's an open group. It's an open group because Marsa from Egypt were also making their debut, and also Edo Queens are making their debut. There is a likelihood that the third encounter for these teams will decide who goes and who stays back. Group A is looking a bit open. Yes, Group A is already decided, I would say, as for who were champions in the second edition. They go with 6 points. TP Mazembe sit at 3, while University of Western Cape, they've got 3 points. The only losing side there should be Anglede Medina. They've got no point after suffering 2 losses. So this group is a bit open, but it's a tight one in Group B there, where Edo Queens lie. Big situation to handle for Edo Queens and Moses Aduku. He's got a lot to do. They're trying to make history, go past the group stage more than Rivers Angels has ever done, or even Delta Queens, who have been former champions of the Nigerian Women's Football League. Edo Queens are trying to break that jinx. Can they? Big question until the third encounter comes for the CAF Women's Champions League. All right, let's move away from there, take you away from Africa and tell you what's going to happen for the UEFA Nations League. League B would see Kazakhstan take on Austria. That's the game to expect today, while Slovenia will see Norway in League B. All right, they're showing you League C already faster than I am. We've got Faroe Islands taking on Armenia there, while North Macedonia would see Latvia. While the World Cup qualification fixture would see Venezuela against Brazil. Brazil will be without Neymar. Of course, he's having to sweat over his own fitness after picking up an injury in the Saudi Arabian Pro League. So Neymar, there is a lot for Neymar to do. They'll be without him today in the World Cup qualification for the Copper Ball. All right, moving away from that, from football, we'll go to basketball. Something interesting is happening on the Nigerian scene. It is the 2024 Nigeria Premier Basketball League Final 8. It kicks off today in Port Harcourt. Games already going on in Rivers State. So 8 teams will have to compete in 2 groups, with games starting at 10 a.m. Nigerian time. All matches will take place at the basketball stadium in Old Port Harcourt Township, home of defending champions Rivers Hoopers. They call them the Kingsmen. So the opening match fixture will be between Boko City Chiefs taking out Police Burton, followed by Now University up against Kwara Falcons at noon. This game is for the defending champions, which kicked off at 12, and we're waiting to see what results are going to be up for the defending champions who are in the final 8. But meanwhile, Rivers State government has expressed some enthusiasm about hosting a top 8 basketball game in the state, and they have stated that the hosting of the competition reinforces the state's emerging reputation as a sport hub in Nigeria. The Commissioner for Sport, Barrister Christopher Green, he stated that there is in this pre-competition presser, while he was assuring that the state government is fully prepared to provide necessary security and logistics for the games. Let's listen to him.
We considered a whole lot of things, and we now said we are bidding 11,200,000 for MBBF and 5 million to participating teams as rebate for their accommodation. We will provide vehicles for them, buses for them to carry them to and back from training, and as well as for the games. It will be stationed with them all through the period. Security, some sundry amount for the trophies and all other things that could be given at the end of the event.
There we'll listen to the Commissioner for Sport in Port Harcourt there, of course, promising that there will be security, logistics, and of course the prize money. You would smile to the bank indeed. All right, I understand that we've got South African sport journalists who, of course, follows South African football and sports generally, joining us to keep us abreast, help us make sense of what's happening in South Africa, even after we heard that the SAFA boss has been granted bail. We have Max Streetum. Thank you so much, Mac. We long waited for you to join, and now we have you. Thank you so much for joining us on In the Game.
Hi, Oninechi. Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry, I had a few connection problems, and I'm guessing you're going to grill me with some tough questions now.
I am going to do so. Of course, you know that, but it's a great one that, against all odds, you could join the conversation. Thank you for joining. But I would like to know, I've been able to tell the audience that SAFA President, I beg your pardon, Danny Jordaan, he has been granted bail and he has met that bail obligations of 20,000 rands. But I would like to understand, what is the general perception in South Africa regarding these legal troubles for the SAFA boss? Is there any controversy concerning his standing as a candidate for fourth term for SAFA presidency? Is there any controversy around that? Do you think these whole legal troubles will cause a taint on that intention of running for the fourth term?
Sure. Yeah. I think the feeling in South Africa is there's been an investigation swirling around Danny Jordaan for probably about 3 years that it's been in the news. A case was opened in 2020, so the news of this has been around for 3 to 4 years, and reported on extensively in terms of the Hawks, which is an elite police unit, investigative unit. Looking into certain the way things have been done in terms of Danny Jordaan and the South African Football Association. And then also there was a Hawks raid of the SAFA offices where they took a laptop, they took some discs, took a whole lot of documents, and that was in March. So it wasn't as much of a bombshell as it could have been when Danny was arrested yesterday, Danny Jordaan. But it's always a bombshell. It's a very big event. When it actually happens, then it sort of brings it home that, okay, this is actually getting serious for the SAFA president. So, yeah, I think the feeling, Danny Jordaan, SAFA have never been the most popular organization. There's a very strong feeling that the South African Football Association and its poor administration and perennially bankrupt and constant corruption allegations, and that it's not done enough for development, and that when because of its bad reputation, can't get sponsorships and then doesn't put enough money into national teams and development, has largely been responsible for the decline in Bafana of the last almost 20 years. So even though there's been signs of some development with Bafana in the last few years, particularly since Hluyo has arrived as coach, I don't know there's a huge amount of sympathy for Danny Jordaan right now with South Africans because of SAFA's reputation.
I'm looking at the aftermath of all this happening in South Africa. Now, given that Jordaan has been accused of using federation resources, he has been accused of using these resources for personal benefit, including hiring a private security and engaging a PR firm without approval. Looking at all this all joined together, how significant is this scandal in terms of impacts on South African football reputation?
I think it can work two ways, I guess. Basically, the people who've been running South African football have done so since the advent of democracy in one form or another. Whether it's the chair of the PSL, Ivan Khoza, who's just been re-elected on the same day, and have not always seen eye to eye, the PSL chair and the SAFA president, who was re-elected on the same day Danny was arrested for a sixth term, who's 77 years old. I think there's a feeling in South African football, in South Africa, in the public, that there's really been a need for new blood for a long time. And this is without denigrating the contributions of Danny Jordaan and Ivan Khoza, and certainly the professionalization of the league and needs really to be credited. It really does. But there's been a feeling that new blood is needed in terms of, has South African football really gone forward, apart from the last sort of 2 or 3 years under one particular coach who's got things right. Bafana have gone backwards really and struggled to qualify for Africa Cup of Nations and really definitely not competed for them until finally they did at this last AFCON, where, as you know, it came to penalties for them to not get to the final against the Super Eagles.
Yeah.
So I think there's a feeling possibly that it might take something as big as this, a criminal investigation and someone being criminally charged, to start to bring about some change. And again, Danny Jordaan's contribution too, he played a huge role in bringing the World Cup to South Africa in 2010. He was the organizing committee and bid committee
let me
chair.
take your word on that, bringing the World Cup. You know, South Africa has got intention of hosting competitions. They're already bidding for future international football competitions like the World Cup and the Women's World Cup. Will this legal issue, could this affect the ability of South Africa to host competitions like the World Cup again?
Yeah, I think it should. I think there's a bit of a feeling in South Africa that economically we're not entirely sure that we can really sustain hosting too many more of these major events. As much as there was a tremendous pride in South Africa and the infrastructure was really beefed up by the hosting of the 2010 World Cup. And another sort of aspect to it is that the bidding for the 2020 Women's World Cup, which SAFA withdrew from, the previous sports minister felt that was largely being done almost as a deflection of Danny Jordaan's troubles, and a distraction from it. And if that was the case, then that would come at a tremendous cost to the country, to the government, to host a World Cup for that reason. So I think among South Africans, there's a feeling that we should get our economy a lot more stable before we host too many major events. Okay. We can host an Africa Cup of Nations. We can absorb that quite easily. Okay. And so, you know, I'm not saying we don't want to host major events. And AFCON, we really generally can put on a very good AFCON. We've got great stadiums. We've got the infrastructure. But in terms of these really mega events, I think most South Africans feel we should rather get our economy right first.
Okay. All right, I'm hoping that they can put that to notes and get words to action. Tamara, friend who would have packed more from this conversation. Thank you so much, Max Tridom. It's been interesting talking to you, and I'm hoping that we can always keep a tab with you to get a hold of the situation here in South Africa.
It's always a pleasure, Onyinyechi. Thanks for having me.